a special John Lund Unleashed 49ers Camp Report edition. Shout out to Lund loyalists watching on YouTube, those watching on X, Instagram, Facebook, and JohnLundUnleashed.com and the Lund Lunatics, listening to the podcast on Apple and Spotify. Make sure to subscribe and like John Lund Unleashed on YouTube and keep those alerts on so you don't miss anything. Now with the latest on the 49ers and the NFL, here's Johnny.
What's happening? Happy Wednesday. I'm late. Actually, I'm early. I said 7:35, but then I actually said 7. So I'm, depending on your viewpoint, I'm either 32 minutes late or 3 minutes early. I like to think that I'm 3 minutes early, but I digress. Let's get to it. Thanks for joining us. John Lund Unleashed, wide receiver roulette, and other things. John Lynch speaks today, as did Kyle Shanahan, and you're going to be the recipient of that, and we'll discuss in episode 226. As you said, John Lynch, the most interesting thing he said today, no to a JJ trade request. That was a while ago. MVS, that's Marquez Valdez-Scantling, seems to have butterfingers, but he's really fast. We'll get into JJ today, and I'll reiterate something that is coming true. I told you Marquez Valdez-Scantling probably be on this team. Told you Russell Gage probably would be on this team. Kendrick Bourne, we're kind of waiting on. Peace Squad guys, if you get excited about those kind of things. I am excited that Upton Stout is back. A little cap talk because that was requested by somebody, as a matter of fact, and I'm a man of the people, so I will take on requests, as you often know. NFL Wire, there's some things. A couple of guys got picked up off the Niners cut list. We'll get into that. I am happy that Rashee Rice, because I'm looking at myself going, okay, wait a minute. I'm not looking at myself, but Demarcus Robinson here. Let me take that off. Demarcus Robinson of the Niners gets 3 games for DUI. I get it. I'm not minimizing what that is, but Rashee Rice races down a Dallas highway, and at least it looked like at the beginning was going to get no games, and basically crashes cars, walks away arrogantly down the highway off the shoulder, and wasn't going to get anything, but it looks like now he is in 6 games. It probably should be more than that, but whatever. So he is going to pay a price, which I think is good. And we'll get into that as well. Plus Adam Thielen, which I thought would have been a great fit for the 49ers as they go for their hunt for wide receivers, at least early in the season, goes back to the Minnesota Vikings. And my favorite comedian, Bill Hader, goes to a Giants game. Had I known that, I wouldn't have gone out of town. I am on business. And after the show, I have to eat tacos, which is my favorite thing to do. So I'm very excited. And I'm not going to rush through the show because I like tacos. I'm just going to do the show because it's going to be a quality show tonight. And there's a lot of things to talk about. And there was a lot of questions, people talking about things. And like I said, we will talk about a lot of things. I did forget a Jake Moody up there. Oh, my God, am I sick of talking about a kicker? Oh, but I won't rip my face off as I just did. We'll begrudgingly talk about the kicker because John Lynch, no offense, and I always tell you this, general managers, coaches, all those types in all of the world of sports don't necessarily have to be lying. That's too strong of a word, but they can't always be telling the truth. And when Jake Moody's your kicker, especially as weird as kickers are mentally, you just have to give him the attaboy, no matter if it's obvious or not, that it's a problem. And John Lynch was kind of like, ha, 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 how can anybody question Jake Moody? And it's like, John, stop it. You don't want to punch him in the face if you were a teammate of his. But anyway, we'll discuss because we have to, right? So anyway, good evening. It is John Lund Unleashed. It is episode 227. A lot of stuff to go over. Welcome, welcome, welcome. If you are watching on X tonight, extra welcome at John Lund Radio. And like I said, I took a request tonight because somebody wanted something to do with cap stuff, which I don't usually love, but it's not as complicated as David Lombardi makes it sound. It's quite easy. There's a lot of places you can go, and then he uses his Stanford education to act like he came up with it at the top of his head. And the reality is, if you go to places like Spot Rack or Over the Cap, it's pretty quite simple because I went to Utah State and I can figure it out. So anyway, it's not that hard. All you got to do is look at it. So we will go over that because somebody asked me to. And like I said, I take requests. I tell you all the time. I'm like, hey, you got questions, comments? Either put it right under here, the show later, or right now on the chat line. Remember, you can always hit me up with a super and you will 100% get on the show or whatever. But I do take requests. And even though I don't love playing with the numbers, because even if it is on Spot Rack or Over the Cap or any of those places, number one, my preference is to just watch the damn games. And you know what? You deal with cap stuff all those kind of things. And after a little while, it's the season, and I don't care. Deal with it. I want to see players, and I begrudgingly have to talk about injuries and off the field. And John Jennings, is it a calf? It is a contract, and all those kind of things. I just love watching the games and talking about those kind of things. And the off the field stuff comes with it, and we know more than we've ever known about all these other things that happen. And so we do have the access to all those things. But if somebody asks, I will. It's not that difficult. Like I said, I'll explain it, and we'll do all those kind of things. So we got a lot on the board today, a smorgasbord of things to discuss. Let's go out to the chat line. And remember, if you're watching on X, come over to John Lund Unleashed. It is a lot of fun. We have built a great community over here. The chat room is a ton of fun. So come say hello. Technically, it is in season now. We are done with the preseason. We're done with cut down day. Will there be a couple of more? Yeah, it is the initial 53. And so I still expect to have some changes, and we are going to have some changes. So anyway, it is nice to see everybody. It's nice to see everybody in the chat room and coming over. If you're on X, if you're watching on John Lund Unleashed, say hello to the new people in here. If you're watching on the Bay Area Sports Collective, that is great. All I ask, and it is very simple, is to please subscribe to John Lund Unleashed on YouTube. Please tell all your friends and enemies. That would be nice. If you hate the show, that's fine. Just tell your enemies, and you go, bleh. See, there you go. You have to watch that show now. Well, they don't have to, but you get the idea. If you hit us with a like, that helps the algorithm and grow the great community that we already have. That would be absolutely great. And keep those alerts on so that you can get stuff throughout the day. I published a bunch of stuff, and because we're on the road, I came back to my hotel room, and it was like, it all got stuck and gummed up, and I don't know what the hell happened today. So I apologize. Some of the things that I wanted to send out didn't get sent out. So I apologize, because you're like, I didn't get anything. And I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry about that. I don't know if I have bad internet. I even paid for the internet in the room. Anyway, that's a problem of mine and not of yours. So anyway, I digress. And you're like, dude, I don't care. Just give us content. I get it. Tommy is here tonight. Let me go to the bottom of the page, and along the way, I may have to, just because I've got the equipment on the road. Sometimes it pops things up just because. But anyway, it is great to see Daniel in the room. Tommy's in the room. Joy is awesome. John is here. Who else is here tonight? Pine Needle. It is great to see Pine in the room tonight. Let me scroll up a little bit here. And like I said, it's more challenging to do this. There it is right there. Let's see if I can get that back. I had it for a minute, but I'm too stupid. There we go. Now I'm rolling. I can see people. 49ers diehard is here. Daniel from the 916. Another Tommy, Big Brick 84 is here. Again, questions, comments, thoughts. 49ers diehard. Did I already say that? Harry Balzac, everybody. Jedi is here tonight. It is great. You tripping, one of my faves. Very cool. Francis, as I always say, all of you are my friends. Everybody, very nice, man. A nice turnout initially. We'll get more as the show goes on and as I entertain and give you a reason to stay around, but it is very nice to see you. Thank you, 49ers diehard, for giving me an update on the Gigantes, who I've long given up on, but they're leading 4-3, and I'm certainly not anti-Gigantes, as we do have a wait until next year. The schedule's already out. They got the Yankees opening in San Francisco, which is great. I'm going to be at that game, and just right now, I'm like, come on, man. Let's go. But anyway, all right, let's get to things. First and foremost, let me play this for you. This is John Lynch, and probably about a 3-minute conversation started this out today with Juwan Jennings. And so let me play this for you, and then let's opine on it, you and I. But this is something that I've been telling you, and I'm going to stick to this. And I don't have I have good sources in the 49ers, but nobody has told me this. I'm just using 30 years of logic here, being a reporter and a talk show host and all these different things that I tell you all the time. There has been no back and forth for a while on this. Juwan Jennings' side wants one thing. The Niners want another thing. They don't want to give, as I've told you a million times, a player who they think is certainly a good player, not a great player. And when agents come to him and say, hey, my good player deserves more money, and you've been paying these guys, and it's, yeah, I paid Warner, I paid Kittle, I paid Brock, we're not into overpaying good players. That's how you go downhill very, very fast. So they haven't given Jennings the money, and I completely understand. He's trying to use the leverage. Niners are trying to hold their ground, and so far nobody has budged. When someone will budge will be when Juwan Jennings starts missing game checks, and he makes about $350,000 a week. To you and I, it's like, I'm going to miss $350,000. To him, maybe he is going to try to make a point. I doubt it. Maybe he thinks the longer he sits out, if the Niners lose, they lose week 1 at Seattle, they lose week 2 at New Orleans. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but let's say it does. And they're 0-2, and their season's going down the drain, and Juwan's sitting back going, ha, 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 ha. Then the leverage swings in his favor, and they probably have to pay him the money. The Niners think to themselves, we can go to Seattle and win with this wide receiver crew. Maybe. They can go to New Orleans and certainly win. And if they start out 2-0, they're going to look at Juwan Jennings and go, you just lost $700,000 and we're 2-0. So this is an interesting game of chicken right now. But I got a feeling that before game 1, when he loses that amount of money, that he's going to say, fine. And he's going to come in and say, let's keep negotiating. But I don't want to lose any game checks. Up to this point, the Niners have been cool. They're like, you're holding in. We're not going to fine you. Everything's cool right now, but when he starts losing money, that's usually when the game of chicken ends. The player swerves and they come into camp. We shall see. To this point, nothing like that has happened. Anyway, about the first 3 minutes of the conversation today with John and Kyle were related to Juwan Jennings, and give Tim Kawakami credit, because at the end of this whole thing, they're going back and forth, and John is saying pretty much the things that he always says about Juwan. It's the calf, it's the calf, it's the calf. And no offense, like I said, I'm not calling John Lynch a liar. He just has to keep the position that he's keeping. I get it. There's leverage involved, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not calling him a liar. It's just he's not telling the truth, but he's not lying. That makes sense. But here he is. But then at the end, Tim says, did he ask for a trade? So here's a few minutes on John Lynch. And it's not only what he says here. Listen to it. It's not only what he says, it's how he says it. Because when someone, this isn't a sports-related thing. This is a human-related thing. When someone is kind of pausing and hemming, what I like to call hemming and hawing, pausing and those kind of things, they're not exactly telling you the truth. You know that. If you have kids, your kid's going, I didn't break the vase. I mean, it was, you're like, you're lying through your teeth. And so John is kind of doing a lot of that. And I do give him a ton of credit that when Kawakami asked him if he had asked for a trade, he says he did. This was a while ago, and they just said, look, we're not trading you, because obviously we're already short at the receiver position. And they were never going to trade for McLaurin because they didn't want to go back into the receiver room and put that kind of money into that room. I told you that. So anyway, let's listen. Let's listen. I promise. Let's listen. Hang on. Let's see. Why is the remote equipment do this to me? It does. Let's see if we can get it going. I promise this is going to work. Hold on. There we go. Oh, man. I laid that out, and then it's not playing. Wonderful. I'm sorry. Hold on. I've got it. The video's right in front of me. Don't know if it's why it's not playing. Let me see if I can reload this, because this is worth it. I gave you all that build up and not for it not to play. So let's try it again.
So Juwan's still working through his calf issue, making progress. We're kind of like everyone else, hopeful but not sure, on week 1. And, we'll proceed as such. And so we're working to get the best mix out there. We added a piece today, and in MVS, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and thrilled to have him part of it. And we move forward.
Are you involved in any other wide receivers?
We're always trying to improve our roster.
I mentioned his MRI in the past. Do you guys see progress with that, with the imaging that's been taken on the calf?
Yeah, you don't image a guy like daily, so that's something that happened a little bit ago, and if it doesn't get better soon, I'm sure we'll be doing more of that.
Is it worse than you originally had thought it was going to be?
Yeah, but I also, calves can take a long time. That's one thing with that injury. Played with guys who they can take a while. So.
I'm sure you may be aware that there's been some conjecture that there's more than just a calf going on, given his desire for your contract and everything. Are you convinced when he is healthy that he'll be ready to play?
Well, there's a lot that goes into that, Eric. Ideally, everybody has a training camp. Everyone's out there. That's a perfect world. But, he's been putting in work to the side, and we'll have to make that judgment when the time comes. The other thing is both things can be true. He wants a new contract and he's got to hurt calf. So I think people want to assume one or the other. Both things can be true.
When you make your decisions on the wide receiver position specifically, do you have to do it assuming you might not have Juwan for the first few weeks?
I think we make every decision on this roster with so many things in consideration. So yes, of course.
Has he asked to be traded?
A while ago he did, but that was a long time ago, and we've moved on from that.
That was during camp, or was it before?
I'm not getting into when it was, but it was a while ago.
So I want to give credit. Let me get this off the screen here. I want to give credit to John Lynch because, again, he's, as I said, the old term hemming and hawing. He's hemming and hawing through that whole thing. He's not having a whole lot of fun, but that's just part of your job. That's why you make the big bucks. And that wasn't a whole lot of fun because he doesn't want to lie. But the reality is the calf, I'm not going to say it's fine, but if Juwan Jennings got the contract that he wanted, then he'd be on the field. I mean, we know that. The calf is not that bad. And whatever the Niners want to say, they want to keep it out of the media eye. They want to keep it away from being a distraction because 2024 was such a disaster, and it was based on a lot of contractual issues, and they thought this year they were free of them. And I'm not blaming Juwan Jennings. And if you are, I understand why you are as a fan because it's frustrating to have to go through this again. But how many times as an NFL player, because you get hurt so much, and it's different than baseball, it's different than basketball, it's different than whatever other sport, because these guys can have their careers ended in one play. Snap, you just broke your leg, and your femur, you broke, you ripped up your knee, your Achilles, and all of a sudden he's just not the same player. And he never gets any contract. So he's looking to secure his future. I understand that, and it's frustrating. But all of a sudden, he and his agent look at a situation where they say, damn, Brandon Ayuk's out. Ricky Pearsall's unproven. All of a sudden, I am de facto number one wide receiver, and this is my time to get paid. And the timing wasn't great, but his agent went to him and said, let's wait. You know that commercial, what is it, where they sell the car, and the wife is going, wait now. In the middle of the night, they're waking up. I mean, come on, who does that? But anyway, point is that they waited till the last minute. And you can say, hey, man, that's a bunch of bullshit. Why'd they do that to my team, the 49ers? Because there's only as much, and you learn this too in life, there's only as much, what's the term? Just loyalty as much as there is as far as you can throw anybody. I mean, people use you until they don't need you anymore. And that's just the way it goes. And no more is it evident in sports. So Juwan Jennings has very little opportunity to have leverage. I'm not defending the guy. I'm just telling you exactly what's going on here is that he is using his leverage to the highest point. The 49ers to this point are saying, look, yeah, we get it. But we just went through this a year ago with Brandon Ayuk. We now understand that receivers are a dime a dozen. I don't know why teams were on crack last year and thought that the wide receiver position was like quarterbacks when they were just throwing massive contracts around. It didn't make any sense then. It doesn't make any sense now. You can draft these guys. You can trade for these guys. You can redo your wide receiver room in one fell swoop, in one offseason. You can do it. Now this offseason, Seattle's trading DK Metcalf. And, just boom, 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 boom. Guys are moving all over the place. Cooper Kupp's going to Seattle. They realize that, wait a minute, we can get new guys. We can get veterans. We can get young guys. We can trade for guys. Like we can redo this room, and we don't have to pay a boatload of money. We're not going to put that kind of money in the receiver room. So I completely get why they did it. So I'm not mad at Juwan Jennings. I get the situation that he's in. But I also understand why the 49ers are saying we're not going to put that kind of money in that receiver room anymore. We just got rid of Deebo Samuel, which, by the way, when I get into the requested cap talk, you're going to hate Deebo Samuel. But anyway, that's for later on, maybe 15 minutes down the line in the show. So as far as Juwan Jennings, and I think we knew this. I don't know that this is new news. A while back, Juwan Jennings, right when this all came about, it was Juwan Jennings wants a new contract on the first day, and the second day he wanted to be traded, and the 49ers said no. So I don't know that this is new news, but I still give Tim Cavalcante credit to dredge this up once again, that he did ask for a trade. The 49ers swiftly said no, and the reason why they did is they looked at it and said, look, we don't have Brandon Ayuk. Pearsall's unproven. What are we going to do at the position? That was before all these other injuries. Now, I did tell you Russell Gage was going to be back. The reason why they cut these guys on cut down day is these vested veterans is because if they keep them on day one, then they've got to guarantee that contract throughout the season. Thomas Morstead, who the hell is going to punt? Kyle Juszczyk? No, they cut Morstead because he's a vested veteran. They cut him, they bring him back. Same thing with Russell Gage. They cut him, they bring him back. So I knew that was going to happen. But this was all before all these injuries. Now, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, you know him. I wouldn't get overly excited. I mean, he was with Aaron Rodgers. He's super fast, nice deep threat, drops a lot of passes. You know, he'd be nice, you know, quick slants through the middle. There's not a lot of guys that are going to be able to cover him. I'd use that. I'd use quick passes on him, get him open on crossers and see if he can run after the catch rather than just go deep ball on him. So I don't mind that move. He's a veteran wide receiver. He's going to, you know, he was just in the West Coast offense in Seattle with Clint Kubiak, Clay Kubiak's brother. So you know, there's going to be some verbiage differences between Seattle's offense and the 49ers, but essentially he's going to know it. And then we're back to the 49ers and Seahawks grabbing players off each other's roster right before they play him. So Marquez Valdez-Scantling might know some things about Seattle's offense, might be able to point him out. Chaz Surratt was a guy that Seattle picked off from the 49ers, and he's going to be on their roster. They're going to, right before the game, they're going to, what do you know about the Niners? And so they're kind of doing that again, which they used to do years ago when it was Pete Carroll versus Jim Harbaugh. That's kind of fun to see that rekindle again. But anyway, staying with the wide receivers. And then the one thing is, and I'm not overly excited about this either. A lot of people have been hitting me up on social media going, Lund, you keep bringing up Kendrick Bourne. He wasn't that great before. He wasn't. But in the beginning of the season, when you're starting wide receivers, if we throw out Jennings for a minute, who I think is going to be there week 1 against Seattle, because I told you he's going to start losing money in week 1, and players don't like that. But if we just for a second say Jennings won't be there, it's Ricky Pearsall as your number 1 receiver, Russell Gage in there somewhere, maybe Marquez Valdez-Scantling. I mean, that's how scarce wide receivers are in the 49ers, because he can come right into camp and maybe start. And then, of course, you're going to use a lot of George Kittle. You're going to use a lot of Christian McCaffrey. I don't know where you're going to go for your wide receivers. It's just not a very good group. So that's going to be a problem. So I don't think the 49ers are going to move in terms of the situation with Jauan Jennings, because if they were going to do that, they would have already done it. They knew that they were going to be short on wide receivers. Gage should be ready, but, you know, Watkins is not going to be ready. Demarcus Robinson is going to be suspended. So there's a lot of issues here. So Kendrick Bourne could be a guy. And again, Valdez-Scantling was in Seattle, knows the offense. Verbiage a little different, but was in Seattle with Clint Kubiak. Similar, same offense. Same thing with Bourne. Not the same offense, but he knows Kyle's offense. He knows what's expected of a Shanahan receivers. You got to block. No block, no rock, right? No block, no rock. So he knows what's expected of 49ers receivers. He knows the offense. He even knows the verbiage mostly of the offense. Been gone a few years, but Kyle trusts him. So I expect him to be signed by the 49ers. Expected Gage to come back. Expected Marquez Valdez-Scantling to be a 49er. I'd heard that yesterday afternoon. So there you go. So does that make them great at the position? Not exactly. So we shall see. So on the board there for episode 227, Lynch on JJ. We just heard that. Valdez-Scantling in. I'd like to know your opinion on that. And maybe Bourne next. Is he requested, by the way, his release from the Patriots? And I'd say to myself, why did he request that? I would think because, not that I'm accusing the 49ers of anything, but maybe, just maybe they spoke to him. And like I said, I don't know that he would even be here long term. Once guys start getting healthy, I don't know how long guys are going to be there. I'm just simply telling you that could be a thing. So there's the latest on the wide receivers. So give me your thoughts there. Let me see if I've got anything there. And I'm going to get to the practice squad in a minute, which is so exciting. Yeah, I'll get into all that stuff a little bit later because there was a question. Any questions, comments, thoughts on wide receivers? There's my good friend Kenny Smith. Jennings just going to have to lump it. He's going to have to ball out and hope for the best. Yeah, it'll be the long-term thing on him is going to be interesting, because what tends to happen, at least at the beginning, is teams don't get pissed. Teams understand how this works. Teams understand that this is just part of the business side of it, and they've got to hold their ground. Players get pissed. And so Jauan Jennings is going to play the season, and he's going to go, I'm going to bust my ass. And you know how he is. I mean, 7th-round pick, got released by the 49ers before. He's already kind of had that kind of chip on the shoulder kind of a thing. And so he'll play really hard this season. I think he's going to have a great year if he does get into the fold here early in the season. And he's going to say, I'm going to prove it to the 49ers, and I'm not going to sign back here. But the 49ers could look at it and say, okay, yeah, you really balled out this year, and we do want to re-sign you. And by the end of the season, if they have a good year and he plays really well, a lot of this will be forgotten by the player, because the agent will come to the player and say, look, man, they just signed you. And this is part of the reason, and people aren't talking about this. They just signed you to a deal last year. They cannot set the precedence to then turn around and give good players, not great players, but players in general, a new contract when you just agreed to a contract last year. I know you don't like the deal. I know you outperformed the deal, but you can't ask for a new contract every other year, even if you look at the situation and say, man, look at the circumstances. I mean, I got a ton of leverage right now. The Niners are just not going to do that. So anyway, there's the JJ stuff. Questions, comments, thoughts on the wide receiver position. 49% of the cap is where the 49ers are right lowest in the league. Yeah, I'll get to that, because like I said, cap talk, and then you see there on the chalkboard there in parentheses, request, because I never's too strong, rarely will I get into cap and blah, 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 blah. I'll do it because it was requested on X to me at John Lund Radio. And I said, you know what? I'll do it, because why not? You know, it's the beginning of the season, that kind of stuff. And I just want to kind of explain a couple of things, because people were like, well, what of this, and what of that, and all that stuff. And I went, okay, I'll do this. I'll do the rare occasion of cap and dead cap, because there's all this weird stuff going on with the 49ers. And I also want to show you by player who you should be most pissed off with. And I also want to explain to you that, you know, the Bills went through this a couple of years ago. Look where they are. The Rams went through this a couple of years ago. They're a contender in the NFC. And everybody thought it was going to take them 3, 4, 5 years to get back into position. And really what it takes is you've got to make your front office has to be amazing through that period where you say, okay, we're going to take this, we're going to trim this fat that we think these guys are older players that aren't as effective as they used to be, that are making a bunch of money, and we're just going to swallow it for a year. And that's what they're doing with this dead cap space. But your 24 draft picks have to take that next step. Your 25 draft picks, and this is where my concern comes in, and I've told you this, is that when Mikael Williams misses all of preseason and all the games, and when CJ West gets hurt, and when Upton Stout, who, by the way, came back today, misses all the preseason games, and you're like, because these guys showed a lot of promise early, but jumping from Western Kentucky to Seattle in week 1 with no preseason, can he do that? Can Upton Stout do that in the slot? When Seattle might have the most challenging slot receivers in the league. I know you're going, wait a minute, what? Cooper Kupp's going to be playing in the slot. Jackson Smith and Jigbo, like both those guys can't play in the slot at the same time, but they're going to rotate those guys in there in Seattle. And the reason why Marquez Valdez-Scantling is in with the 49ers now and not in Seattle is a guy named Torrey Horton, who was a really good receiver out of Colorado State, and he got hurt last year. I don't know if you remember, but Deion Sanders' second game as Colorado's head coach, and everybody was hyping him up and all this kind of stuff. Torrey Horton almost single-handedly beat them. They just couldn't cover him. And he had like 15 catches or something. And then he got hurt last year, only played in a few games, and probably would have been, I don't think he'd have been a first-round pick, maybe a second-round pick. Ended up going in the 5th round to Seattle, had a great preseason, and Seahawks were like, well, that's our third receiver. So they've got some guys on that team that are going to be tough. And I don't know who's going to start in the slot, you know, because maybe you're going to go with a veteran like they did late in the preseason. Chase Lucas was really good. Upton Stout was crushing it early in camp. But then, you know, muscle injuries and all those kind of things popped up on him. So I don't know if he's going to be in starting lineup in Seattle in week 1. That's a hell of a jump from Western Kentucky to no preseason games to welcome Jackson Smith and Jigba, who was the most productive slot receiver last year in the league. And oh, by the way, Cooper Kupp was like the most productive slot receiver the 5 years before that. So that's a hell of a time for him to do that. But as you see right there, back, Stout was back, Justin James. And I don't expect James to get a bunch of time. But what I'm saying is that if you look at now the running backs, where 2 weeks ago you're like, who the hell's backing up Christian McCaffrey? And all of a sudden, Brian Robinson, who, by the way, is wearing number 3, if you care about those kind of things. And now you've got, you know, Garendo still a little bit fragile, but he's back. And now Justin James is, you know, 4-string plus special teams. Now your running backs are like, damn, you got some backs on this team. All right, so before I jump to the practice squad, which makes everyone oh so excited, let me just make sure that we don't have any more Jawan Jennings thoughts, because I get it if you're pissed. But you also understand that, look, the amount of years of these guys' career, that they have versus the amount of times that they have actual leverage. They've got to use it when they have it. So I get it. You're a Niners fan and you're going, come on, Juwan, we need you, dude. And he understands that too, but he's trying to get paid because how many times does he have leverage where he's going, hey, there's no Ayuk. Pearsall's unproven, even though I think Pearsall's going to have a great year. I got to get my money. So anyway, there's that. You heard John Lynch just talk about it. And like I said, I give him a ton of credit for going, okay, you know what? He did ask for a trade and, blah, blah, blah. But don't get it wrong. The calf, that ain't the issue. That's not the issue anymore. Yeah, the 40. I'm going to show you this graphic. It's going to blow your freaking mind. And not only that, I'm going to take it a step further and show you who is killing the 49ers on that cap. I hope the Niners are not in cap hell. You wait. Again, Miguel, thanks for that. I'm telling you, you wait until this season. I'm going to blow your mind on that kind of stuff. Maybe I won't. Maybe like whatever. I don't care. Let's start playing football. And I'm with you. These what's today? Wednesday. These 10 days before the actual games start is like when you were 10 years old at Christmas. It's like these are the slowest 10 freaking days ever. It's like this weekend football really starts. I mean, week 0 was last week. That's great. Give me Ohio State, Texas, please. Can we just get to Ohio State, Texas? Can we do that now? Because college really starts this weekend. And then it feels good. And I keep trying to tell myself, it's like my team being on a bye this weekend, right? And then boom, then it starts. But it just takes so long. And I'm like, I am ready. I'm ready now. Can we just do it now? My goodness, man. It's crazy. All right. So we went over Jennings. We went over MVS. We are going to do practice squad. We already talked about Stout and James, and then we'll do cap talk. Before we get to the practice squad, let me do this because I don't want this to be a daily occurrence. I even told you this. But Lynch, this is, again, John Lynch is not a liar. He just can't be always telling the truth. And remember, he's not going to rip Jake Moody. So again, we've got to talk about Jake Moody, and you don't want to talk about kickers. They talk about kickers more in, a week around here than most teams do in an entire season. But here's John Lynch today and Kyle Shanahan, and watch Kyle's face because nobody asked Kyle. They don't want Kyle talking about the kicker because he'll break form and just be like, look, I'm sick of this shit. I don't like the guy. I don't want to talk to the guy. Just make a damn kick. Because that's basically what he said after the Raiders game. He's basically like, look, I don't talk to him. I don't know what to say to a kicker. I don't want to talk to a kicker. I want him to make the kicks. That's essentially what he said. And that's when he won a game. So here's John Lynch trying to be a little bit more diplomatic about Jake Moody. Oh my gosh, these things are killing me. So again, I'm loading these, but what's happening is that they're not they're not loading it. I'm having to reload these things so that they'll actually play. So hang on a minute. This is what I get when I do road shows. It'll just take a second. Talk amongst yourselves. Here we go. Here's John Lynch.
Jake had a really good, preseason. I found it interesting after, having a hell of a game in Las Vegas that, a lot of people still have questions. And I guess that when you had a season like you did last year, those things are going to be there until you put you kind of put that away. And, we got a lot of belief in him and understand that last year was rough, but that happens in guys' careers. Our confidence and belief in him is what we see out here. But I will say everything's earned in this league and everyone's got to go prove it each and every game, each and every year. And so Jake understands that.
Liar, liar, pants on fire. You know what? Somebody just put something up here and I agree 100%. Thank you, P. The Moody thing is tired. It is what it is. Let the guy have a shot. I agree with you 100%. I say this all the time. I hope the guy succeeds. I do. The problem is, I think from a mental standpoint is, and he did a lot of mental work in the offseason. He did some physical work in the offseason. He shortened up his approach to the ball and all these kind of things. And it's not a physical issue because the guy can hit it from 65. I mean, he really has a strong leg. He can kick it out of the end zone, which helps special teams, even though they want it to be in the safe zone this year. And they've loaded up on special teams, all these kind of things. It's just that, he's inconsistent, and that drives every fan, coach, everything just crazy. He can hit a 59-yarder. He can doink an extra point. He can kick one out of bounds. You saw Brant Boyer's face. You saw Kyle's face. You saw Kyle when John was talking. I don't think they want Kyle to answer any more questions about the kicker because he's just too honest. And I've told you that from day one when Kyle was hired in 2017. Tom Tolbert and I did the first interview with him, and Kyle said, "Look, man, I'm just too honest." And he's been that way. So that's just how he is. And he's always going to be that way. And I don't think they want him answering questions because it hurts the kicker's confidence. And I understand that. So I'm with you, P. I want him to do well. I don't want him to fail. I don't want him to have to go out and screw up and everything. One thing I'm a little bit surprised by, and maybe it's just because, and I said this last night, because it would hurt the fragile psyche that Moody already has. But Dustin Hopkins, who again, he's a guy with a really strong leg and is shown to be a good kicker in this league at times, but is on that roller coaster ride as well. I thought they might put him on the practice squad just because if Jake is on thin ice, and he is, then why not have the best kicker available on your practice squad so you can just go boom, and work him out and have him around. Maybe that's not great. But what I think is weird about that is that at every other position in football and really in sports in general, you can have a competition, but you don't want to mess with the psyche of the kicker. And so then, like Greg Joseph is not a great kicker. I knew that competition wasn't going to work. And so bring in somebody who's really good and see what happens. They're not going to do that because Jake's psyche is already fragile. And you know what? Seattle's not an easy place to kick. And you know that it's loud, and whether they pump sound in or not, I don't know. But reality is that, if the game's on the line and that place is going absolutely bonkers, which it does in Seattle, I've covered many games there, and the stadium shakes and the people are loud and it's obnoxious and all those kind of things. And they pump in sound and they got that green color that looks like nuclear vomit and all those kind of things. And it's just not an easy place to kick. Now, if Jake Moody and I think it was it Lynch? Was it Shanahan? No, it was Brant Boyer who said, you know what, the 59-yarder, the preseason 59-yarder that won the game in Vegas, that could be career-changing. Yeah, it's a preseason game. It could be career-changing if you win a game against a division rival on the opening day of the season. I might be able to go within on that in a stadium that is rocking and rolling like Seattle does. So let's see. And I agree with you, man. Let's give him a chance. Let's see what he can do. And I am sick of it just like you are. I don't want to talk about the guy anymore. I'm just saying that when you have to talk about the kicker, that's not good. So there you are. All right, let me get through a little Jake Moody here. Any other thoughts on him? Hi, Filthy Casual. It's very nice to see you. Let's see, who else do we have today? Very nice, very nice. We're getting a lot of people in the room tonight. It is very cool to see everybody. And again, I'm on the road today and was yesterday. I'll be back in the studio, not tomorrow. We'll do another road show tomorrow. Friday, I believe I'll be back in. Oh my gosh, we just went crazy. We just lost the screen there. Hang on just a second. There we are. We are back. I was just trying to scroll up a little bit. Let's see, who else do we have in the room today? It's very good. Hi, Anthony. Good to see you. All right, let's so everybody's been requesting this. I don't know why, because I don't love doing numbers. I can do them. I'm a numbers guy. But there were so many people asking for them today, and I'm sorry I didn't put this person's name up on the screen, but let me give them full credit because they hit me up on X at John Lund Radio. And again, if you're watching on X tonight, thank you very much. I appreciate you making the time. But if you'd come over to the John Lund Unleashed YouTube page and make sure that you subscribe, have your alerts on, and hit us with the like tonight, that would be outstanding. Just requesting. Let me make sure that I have the person's name right that requested this. So where are we at here? Let's see. If this takes too long, I'm sorry. I'm not going to be able to give you credit. Oh, here you go. PGR says this. Big John, which, yeah, okay. I'll take that. My wife may disagree, but Big John here. It says, here's a segment we need tonight. Someone needs to clear this up. Kruger, my good friend Larry Kruger, says 143 million under the cap, including dead money, seems off. Who can do the real math? Ping it against the salary cap and decipher. Under cap does not necessarily reflect all the money, blah, blah, blah. All right. Here's the bottom line to this whole thing. I'm going to give you a few things here. All right. And then we shall never speak of this again. So this is over the cap. They're really good. So hopefully you can see that well enough. They are third in cap space. There is cap space right there, almost 43 million. There is effective cap space, about the same. There is active spending, blah, blah, blah. And there is dead money, which they're number one. And I'll show you that in a minute. Almost $100 million for players not to play free this year, with the exception of Kyle Juszczyk. He was cut, re-signed. He's still got dead cap space, and he's the only player that is still playing on the 49ers with dead cap space. I'll explain in a minute. So they are third in cap space. So you're thinking to yourself, I'm going to give you some great news in a minute, because So what are they saving that money for? You might be asking yourself, well, they just signed Kittle and they signed Warner and they signed, most importantly, Brock. And they say, like, so what are they saving this money for? Now, what's great about it is you can take money, and I hope I'm not boring you. By the way, Harry Balzac, I'm just looking at this. Willie Lampkin went to the Eagles, much to the chagrin of one Larry Krueger. He went to the Eagles today, which maybe that's what you're saying. I'm just picking that off real quick. But anyway, I digress. So what's great about this is that you can roll over money from year to year. And what the 49ers are doing, and a bunch of people were pissed off, but one of the reasons they let a lot of these guys go, Deebo Samuel is part of this. Talanoa Funga is part of this. Hargrave was part of this. I'm just bringing up certain names. Eric Armstead, they still owe money to, and I'm going to show you that list in just a second. These are players that the 49ers identified that certainly weren't worth the money, and more importantly to the 49ers, were too injured. They just were injured more than the salary would allow. And that's the worst possible thing that you can have is it's one thing to be ineffective. It's another thing to be injured and not available. The best ability is, say it with me, availability. So if you don't have availability and the 49ers are paying you, every team gets pissed off, but maybe nobody more than the 49ers. So they've got the third most cap space. And last year you could say, okay, well, I understand them not spending it because they've got a bunch of guys this offseason that they're going to pay, right? So that's why they were saving it. So put a pin in that. I'm going to tell you something in a minute. So then let's go to dead cap, all right? Bam! They have the most dead cap. In other words, players that they're paying not to play for them. Contracts, guaranteed money, all those kind of things. So they're almost at $100 million for players not to play for them. They did that on purpose because they just said, you know what, we're just going to take this in one fell swoop. Hopefully this season, their top end players do not get hurt. This is why they're so thin at the top, because they've just decided for this season, we're going to eat it. Yum, 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 yum. We're going to cut it up. We're going to eat it. It's not very tasty, but you know what? It is what it is. And rather than take this over a 3 or 4 or 5 year, like a credit card, the credit card bill they decided is due right now. And they've got young players, and those young players have got to get better fast. And that's the way back up. And then they'll be able to spend some money after this year, because I'm going to tell you some good news in a minute. But the Bills did it this way, and especially the Rams did it this way. And look, the Bills did it because they still have Josh Allen, and they built back around him. But the Rams did really good, especially on the defensive end. Think about this, defensive side. Aaron Donald retires, they get better. They have a bunch of dead cap space after the Super Bowl. They just went all in on that Super Bowl. The difference between them and the Niners, obviously, is they won a Super Bowl. The Niners did not. They were hoping a couple of years ago in Vegas they'd win that Super Bowl, and then they would go down that road and say, well, we won one. We got one in our pocket. Now we can kind of hit the, I'm not going to say reset button because that's not what they're doing. But anyway, that's the dead cap look. All right. So there's that. Now, let me go a step further on the dead cap here. All right. And then I'll show you the good news in a second. These are the players you can boo and hiss this year. Oops, that's the practice squad. Sorry. Come on, Lund, get your stuff straight. All right. So let me give you boo and hiss. All right. These are the guys you can boo and hiss this year. There is one Deebo Samuel at the top of that stuff. All right. There's $34 million at the top of that. They still owe Eric Armstead money. They still owe Mooney Man Ward. They still owe Leonard Floyd. They still owe Javon Hargrave. The only guy in that list, and I've circled him, is Kyle Juszczyk. Remember, he got cut, re-signed. So that money, that bonus money that's spread over a number of years, is money that is still on the dead cap, despite the fact that he is on the 49ers. You can think of him as a different player because he signed a new contract after that. Mitch Wisnowski out. Sorry, Devondre Campbell. Despite the fact that you walked off the field, they still owe you money, and on and on. Dre Greenlaw, a little bit of money, and on down the line. Those guys, there's guys below that yellow line there, but essentially 92 of that $97 million is in those players. And thank you, Deebo Samuel, for costing the 49ers $34 million. How badly did the 49ers want to get rid of Deebo Samuel? How badly did the 49ers think that Deebo Samuel had lost it? $34 million worth. So they're making a gamble that says we don't think Deebo has it anymore, to the tune of $34 million. All right, so that's the bad news. $92 million of the $97 million is on those players. And you can say, thank you, Deebo. We'll see what kind of a season he has. So that's the bad news. Now, let's go back to the fact that I told you that the 49ers have the second most amount of cap space. And you're going, well, what are they saving it for? Because we understood last year they were saving it for Brock and Fred Warner and George Kittle and all those guys they needed to resign, right? They had just re-upped with Trent Williams. They had just given a little bit of extra money to Christian McCaffrey, right? So what are they saving it for? Nobody. Who's on that list that you would re-sign? These are their 26 free agents, next year's free agents. Now, obviously, at the top is Juwan Jennings. But I'm telling you, maybe there's one or two guys on there, but there's nobody screaming. There's not a George Kittle. There's not a Fred Warner. There's not a Brock Purdy. There's nobody on that deal. I mean, if they lost all those guys, I'd like to have Juwan Jennings back at the Niners number if I'm the Niners. Here's your good news. That list right there, it's just a meh, whatever term you want to use along those lines, list. I'd like to have Juwan Jennings. I would. Next year. He's clearly the best free agent on that list, but there's not a lot of great free agents on that list. So what the 49ers are doing, the method to the madness here that everybody was freaking out about, and we'll see if they were right or they were wrong. It's going to come down to the 24 and 25 draft classes, and it's going to come down to how effectively can they use this money in free agency, because there's not a lot of guys on that list. They're either going to be A, guys that they want back, B, that they need back, or C, that they're going to pay a lot of money to. Right? So they're not going to spend a lot of this money that they've got in the cap space. Most of this money, now there's going to be holdover money still, like Armstead they're still paying. Debo they're still going to pay over a couple of years. So there's going to still be some money here, but the majority of that money is going to be gone. The majority of that money is going to be gone. So that's going to be a lot less next year. And like I said, if you go back up here, cap space wise, that's going to grow. So they're going to hold over a lot of that. And you're saying to yourself, well, why couldn't they pay Jennings now? Again, it's a situation where the 49ers, after getting out of, I'm not going to call it cap hell because it's not quite like that. But after digging themselves out of this big hole and still trying to be competitive, they're not going to just dig themselves back into it by giving $20 million to Juwan Jennings. They're not taking a massive hit, especially this year, of $34 million from Debo Samuel to go right back into that wide receiver room and hand Juwan Jennings $20 million. So you understand their hesitancy in giving him the money because they just got out of that situation. And they're not so happy that they gave Brandon Ayuk that money either. So cap space looks great. Not a lot of players that they want to or need to re-sign next year. So they're in a great position right now as far as cap space. And in the short term, as I said, dead cap space, yeah, horrible. But the majority of that money is going to be gone in a year, and they don't have a lot of players that they're going to re-sign the year after that. So you're going to be feeling pretty good about the situation for the 49ers. Maybe not this year, but next year. Now, I'm not doing this whole Giants thing of wait till next year, and next year never arrives, right? Tomorrow, next year. We're not playing that game. Because of the schedule of the 49ers, now this would be nice if they were a really good team this year because they'd probably win 14 games. But as is, and you and I have already had this conversation numerous times in the last 10 days, they'll probably even be in bad. Now, I've said 9. Wouldn't shock me if they win 10, 11, or 12 just based on the fact that it's just not a very good schedule that they're going against. If they somehow pull off the Seattle game in week number 1, New Orleans, along with Cleveland, probably has the worst quarterback situation in the league, and probably New Orleans does. Spencer Rattler, I'd probably rather have Joe Flacco than Spencer Rattler, and Rattler is going to be the starter for the Saints in week number 1. So they've probably got the worst quarterback situation in the league, even though it's not fun traveling all the way across the country and then you drink a bunch of Hurricanes and you're hungover on Sunday. I'm kidding. That's me. That's not the Niners. They're not going to do that. But they're in a, so they could win 10 games almost in their sleep, kind of, if they get average NFL injury situation, not like they had last year, so they get average NFL injury, they can win 9 or 10 games. And if they get good injury situation, they could win 11 games and they could be a factor in the NFC because the defense could come around. So let's stop for a second. Does that all make sense? So to summarize, this year the cap space is great and they don't have a lot of players that they're going to be holding the money for. That's great for the future. They're paying the credit card bill now. They've got all that dead cap space, and I just showed you the names on that dead cap space, or the dead cap this year. They're eating up a lot of Debo Samuel. They're eating a lot of Eric Armstead still. There's a lot, there's a Javon Hargrave on there. There's a little bit of a Dre Greenlaw. A lot of these guys, they've just decided we're going to eat all this stuff. There are a few guys that are going to have to be 2 years on that list, but it's not going to be near the money that they're eating this year. So again, they're elongating that money to still pay a little bit of that money next year. But there isn't a Brock Purdy. There isn't a George Kittle. There isn't a Fred Warner. There isn't guys that they need to extend next year. There isn't that next group. Now, that's both good and bad. Because what you want is you want to what? draft, develop, resign, draft, develop, resign. Because if you're getting others leftovers, and that's what free agency is, why didn't they want to resign that guy? Well, that guy's either unproven, too expensive, too injured. That's why people make it. That's why guys make it to free agency, and they are always flawed. And so that's fool's money, and that's why the teams that are always bad, who draft poorly, develop poorly, don't re-sign their own, and then they get out to free agency. And then those teams who are bad, who have a bunch of cap space because they didn't draft, develop, and re-sign their own, then they go out and they sign other teams' mistakes, and then they're like, damn, we gave all that guy a bunch of money, and now we're screwed up, and we have this bad free agent too that didn't develop under somebody else. So anyway, point is, they have the most cap space, they have the most dead space, but they don't have a lot of guys they're going to re-sign. And after this year, they're looking really good as far as the space is concerned, and they're going to take the majority of this credit card hit. Okay, fine, we're going to pay off the credit card. We're going to pay off the majority of this credit card hit right now. So the future is bright, and the schedule is bad. Make sense? I hope so. All right, so one thing I popped up there, and questions, comments, thoughts. Give me your thoughts on the way the cap looks right now for the 49ers, which I think is very good. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, as of right now, this is your PS, your practice squad. Their break glass in case of emergency corner is Eli Apple. That does not make me very happy. There's one name. Did I put this on the NFL Wire? Because I don't want to jump it if I did. No, I didn't. Darian Kendrick's a really interesting corner that the Rams had, and the 49ers picked up a defensive lineman today on their waiver wire, and that's what they used because they have the 11th spot in the waiver wire. Seattle, who picked later in the waiver process, picked up Darian Kendrick, and I'm a little surprised because while the Niners don't have a lot of experience in their defensive line, and this is why I'm sure they picked this player up, I just thought they really needed corner depth. Kendrick has started 18 games. He's played 2 seasons for the Rams, came out of Georgia. Doesn't have great numbers. I'm not saying he does, but he's about 6 foot, 200 pounds. He is that typical bigger outside corner, which the Niners kind of lack because even as good as Demo Lenore is, he's not really big. And Renardo Green's a little bit bigger. But again, they've got some good players in the slot. I have no issue with that. But are we looking at Darrell Luter Jr. as far as the third corner in Seattle? Would Eli Apple take that spot if there was an injury? Probably, because he's a veteran, and I might trust him a little bit more than I would Darrell Luter Jr., although Luter plays a lot on special teams, so maybe he'd be there. But Kendrick is 25 years old, went to Georgia, so he had big-time college football in the SEC. And I like his size, and he started 18 games in his NFL career in 2 seasons, and he was effective at times for the Rams, but Seattle picked him up. Same kind of defense, so you would think that they would need the same kind of corner. Anyway, that's not what they did. Bergen is a guy that flashed, but once Sky Moore came here, you saw that his days might be limited, but he brought him back. William Bradley King was a guy that they got late in camp. They picked him up from Washington. He comes back. Same thing with Derek Canteen. Same thing, DB, that they picked up late in camp. Wide receiver, Robbie Chosen, that is just more of an insurance policy on that one. Gibson is a player that's been effective off the edge at times. The Bears might flash to you. They picked him up late in camp. I really like Jalen Graham. They always have a couple of linebackers on the practice squad, so that especially for special teams. Drake Nugent, very undersized, but nice. Curtis Robinson, I'm not surprised because he's coming off that injury, but had a nice preseason finale against the Chargers with that pick 6. Malik Turner is not so much a receiver as again as a special teams player. There's the Sebastian Valdez. As I told you yesterday, everybody was freaking out. Oh my God, we're going to lose the Hulk. And I'm like, they got to put him on the 53. Who's going to put him on the 53? And I knew he wasn't going to sign with another practice squad because he likes Robert Saleh. He was under Chris Kucerik. He was a guy that I thought was going to come back to the 49ers practice squad. The only team I thought might get him was Seattle because he played at the University of Washington, and I know the coaches up there liked him, but I'm sure they might have contacted him, but he came back to the 49ers. And if you look at him, he's going, I got a bunch of young guys that I could grow with here. I know the system. I like the system. I like the coaches. So he comes back, and I think he's going to be activated at some point during the season. Braden Willis, I'm not a big fan. He's been here for a few years, never really done much. And I thought Nick Zakelj would come back to the team too because he's been here a while. And you always need a interior line help, and Zakelj can play center and guard. So it doesn't surprise me. So there is the practice squad as of right now. Again, they signed a defensive lineman, veteran. That doesn't surprise me so much because They've got so many young guys in there, and I don't know if CJ West was going to be full tilt when it comes to Seattle. It wouldn't surprise me if they went out and possibly went and got an edge guy. I'm a little bit surprised maybe that they didn't do that because of Mikael Williams' injury. And like I said, Mikael Williams is back. Great news. Stout is back. Great news. James is back. But on that defensive side, will Stout have enough practice time this time leading up to Seattle? And again, next week is game week. So he's going to essentially have 10 days to get ready for Seattle. And as good as he looked early in camp, it wouldn't surprise me if he was the starting nickel there. And then, so if you start looking at Robert Saleh saying, okay, 6 to 8 rookies could potentially start. Well, let's look at it now. Mikael Williams, one, I think he's going to start along the defensive line. If I was a betting man, I think one of those rookies is going to start inside, either West or Collins. So there's 2, I believe. Linebacking core, Martin's not going to start, but the way that he came on in those final couple of preseason games and the way that he's been in practice, he's been a firecracker. It's going to be Winters and Warner, but he might be that strong side linebacker when they go to 3 linebackers. So I technically could call that a starter. So I guess I could say Nick Martin. I think he's going to be the 3rd linebacker. So I'll hedge and call that a 3rd. In the defensive backfield, let's call Upton Stout that. I mean, again, there's a nickel. So that could be 4. And then as far as the safeties go, could Siegel be a starter in that? I think it's going to be Pinnock. And if I was a betting man, I'd probably say Jair Brown, even though he started camp really, really well. And he had a press conference that was very convincing where he's like, hey, I'm going to put my second year behind me and I had injuries and I feel better now. And he was playing well. And then he kind of tailed off as camp went on. So that's still an open position. But again, I think Pinnock and Siegel are redundant. I think they're both really good box safeties who can hit and stop the run game. And against Seattle, that might not be the worst thing in the world because Clint Kubiak, who's the offensive coordinator of Seattle, Clay Kubiak, who's the offensive coordinator but not play caller, that's still Kyle, they want to do the same thing. I don't know if you watched Seattle in the preseason at all, but they went back to running the ball. They were the worst rushing team in the league last year, and that's not Pete Carroll, and Pete Carroll's not there anymore, but they want to run the football and play defense. And they ran the hell out of the football in the preseason. So Ken Walker is back. He's been injured. Charbonnet has actually ran the ball a lot. And a guy named George Halani out of Boise State had a really good preseason. They ran the ball a ton. They drafted Gray Zabel, North Dakota State, hi Trey Lance, to play left guard. They've improved their offensive line, but and they got a fullback too. A guy named Robbie Oots, who is a tight end at Alabama, is 275 pounds. And because they have the Niners offense, he's playing fullback, and so they're just trying to ramrod the ball. They'll throw whatever, but they're trying to run the football, and so maybe they'll, again, maybe it's less nickel. Maybe that's going to be more of Nick Martin in there. Maybe it's going to be more 3 linebackers. Maybe, as I'm talking about the safeties, maybe they could do more, of the 2 safety look where it's more box safety guys in that game, more of a Siegel and Pinnock look versus Siegel and Brown. But we'll see. I think it's probably going to be Siegel and Brown just because they've got that kind of stuff. But anyway, we'll see in week 1 against the Seahawks, and we can get more into that as the week goes on. So episode 227, we talked about Lynch, the JJ request trade, played that for you. Marquez Valdez-Scantling is in the house. Is Kendrick Bourne next? Practice squad, we gave you that. Biggest thing about that list is Hulk is back, if you were worried about that. Speaking of back, Stout is back. James is back. Some of the rookies, you already knew that Mikael Williams was back, and our good friend CJ West, who I like a lot. Cap talk was requested, and I came through on that. Is there any more questions as far as the cap is concerned? If you missed it, go back. We don't do that often, but I don't mind it. Anything else as far as Niners talk? Because I'm going to go to the NFL Wire. There was a few interesting stories today as we continue to look at teams trying to shape themselves up to the 53 before everything else. We did hit a little bit of Jake Moody. I apologize in advance, but we did have to hit up a little Jake Moody there. We played John Lynch on Jake Moody, talking today with Kyle Shanahan. Yeah. I was going to spring this on you, but I didn't have the heart. I was going to do that, but that's not true. So if maybe you're listening with no volume up, that didn't happen. I was going to play with you on that, but I'm not going to do that because that would hurt your feelings. You'd be like, they did? No, they didn't. They didn't. I was just going to play with you on that, but I didn't have the heart. I saw that down there, and I thought, I'm not going to do that to the people. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to put that in there because you'd get excited. Then you would find out that that he didn't get released, and then you'd be mad at me. But somebody said before, I'm sorry, I forgot who it was. Like, let's just let it roll. Let's just see what he does. I'm like, you know what? You're right. I'm not going to do this every day. I'm not going to mess with it every single day. Carlos Niner says, can't wait to see the Niners, the Seattle trip Niners invasion. Yeah, that's a lot of fun, man. I will say that, look, I'm not a Seahawks fan at all, but I do think there's, I don't know what I would call it, because I've been up there many times to cover games up there, and it's just the Niners fans just take over LA, and they kind of like they're like dogs. They just roll over in LA. Seattle, it's like they don't like us. We don't like them. I go on with a friend of mine, Ian Furness's show at KGR in Seattle every Tuesday, and we give each other grief and everything like that. But it's, I don't know, mutual respect. I mean, there is hate when you start adding beer. People do get nasty and stuff like that. But there is kind of a, I don't know, a weirdness about it where, because we're kind of similar. I mean, all through the year, the last number of years, it's like we're physical, punch each other in the face. Kubiaks are the offensive coordinators. They want to basically do the same thing. Whether we like it or not, it tends to come down to these two teams. I mean, it's just weird. And here's even the most weird part. They open at Seattle, and then the season closes with Seattle at the Niners in week 17. You know how different these two teams are going to look? It's just strange that they did it that way, but they did. Just weird. Who's got a 5 RBI game? Hi, J49. It's good to see you, man. Yeah, I mean, LA is just ridiculous. I mean, you go down there, it is, I mean, it's honestly, it's comedy. I mean, it is just comedy, except for that time I sat in the booth after the NFC Championship game and had to broadcast a post-game show from there. That was not fun at all. I'm just staring right at that gigantic screen where it said, we're going to the Super Bowl, or whatever the hell they did. And it was like, had it with you people. Had to stare at that thing for like 4 hours, just person after person. Ever told you that story? Person after person after person, it just on the field, they were doing snow angels, and I'm staring at this kind of stuff. Then to cap it all off, everyone kept calling, and I'm like 4 hours into this thing, and finally I was at a commercial break and told the studio, I'm done, man. It's like it's 2 a.m, and that's when the Rams played the Bengals in the Super Bowl. They had finally taken care of the Chiefs, and they go to the Super Bowl. All they had to do was catch an interception. But anyway, that's beside the point. And so I go out to my car, and I had driven down to LA, obviously, to cover the game. And I go out to my car, and I wasn't even in an area that was a tailgate area. And somebody had used like a barbecue grill, and then they had been drinking and stuff like that. And they literally put the barbecue grill like on the top of my car. And there must have been, I'm not even kidding you, 50 to 60 beer bottles. Like, they just set them all over my car. And then, so I take and I just sweep them off the car, and I take the thing. And this is like, I'm the last person to leave the damn stadium. It's 2 a.m. and there's no one. And I get out there and everything, and I take all the stuff, and there's all this stuff. And I mean, it's a Christmas tree of beer bottles. I mean, it's seriously, I'm taking them off the bumpers and all this kind of stuff. And I think I have everything off the damn car. So I get in the car, I start it, and I start going, it's like, I'm like, what in the hell? And I look underneath the car, and they had taken like orange traffic cones, and they had stuffed them underneath like my wheel wells. And so here I am at like 2 a.m, pulling these traffic cones out of my car. And so then I think, okay, I'm done. And then I'm just, slowly going through the parking lot. I think all the beer bottles are gone. And as I hit the gas, as I get on to the road, more beer bottles fly off my car that I didn't know were there. And of course, I get to this red light, and I get out to try to take more off them. And a guy, like the guy next to me, rolls down his window and goes, "Hey man, have some more to drink, dude." And I'm just like, I'm the most dead sober guy in LA right now. And, I didn't know that you put 100 beer bottles on my car. I thought it was only 85. So anyway, I was in the worst mood ever because they lost that NFC Championship game, and here I am, and I'd sit there for 4 hours and try to soothe everybody and be the psychologist. Have a seat on my couch, lay down on my couch, and I was just like, you got to be kidding me. So I went through like 4 hours staring at this screen, watching all the Rams do like snow angels with the confetti, staring at this. We're going to the Super Bowl or NFC champs or whatever it was doing. And then I get done 2 a.m. I'm the last guy. By the way, I couldn't find my way out of the stadium because like no one was left. I get out of the stadium, walk to my car. It's all that stuff, cones. Then there's more. And I'm just like, you got to be kidding me. Anyway, you know what? I don't dig ditches. I didn't dig ditches. I'm not asking for anyone to feel sorry for me because that's ridiculous. I don't need to be felt sorry for. But, as far as, my job is concerned, it was great. It was just, that certain day was like, that sucked. All right. Anyway, I digress. Let's do it. Let's hit the NFL wire.
It's time for a look at the NFL stories making headlines. It's the NFL Wire on John Lund Unleashed.
All right, some things around the league. Chaz Surratt, I told you, linebacker, that he's a nice special teams player. I thought he would make the Niners. Real athletic guy. I even think he has some potential to play the linebacker position, not just special teams. He's a good special teamers. The Seahawks and the Niners used to do this all the time. They were incestuous in terms of when Harbaugh was around, Pete Carroll. The week before they would play each other, they would pick up each other's players, free agents. And so this week, the Niners pick up Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Now, I'm sure they needed MVS, and so they picked him up, but I'm sure they'll pick his brain. And then Chaz Surratt goes to the Seahawks. I'm sure they'll pick his brain. So there's that one. Jeff Wilson Jr. not going to stay with the 49ers practice squad. He reverts back and goes to Miami and goes with Mike McDaniel. That's no big deal. Jeff Wilson Jr., I don't know that he has a whole lot left as far as first is concerned, and with James coming back today, the rookie from Oregon, I think that's a better fit right now for the 49ers. This is good. Rashee Rice, and I know you remember the story, but he went to SMU. He's from Dallas, and he was doing some racing a couple of years ago on a Dallas highway in the middle of the day and crashed a couple of high-priced sports cars, and he just got out of the car like it was like Grand Theft Auto and walked out of the cars, him and his buddies, and just walked down the shoulder like nothing happened. Bunch of accidents and everything happened. And I remember somebody ran up to him and was like interviewing, like, you can just leave your car there, huh, dude? And he was acting like, what? I didn't do anything. And so it kind of pissed me off only because, Demarcus Robinson gets 3 games for a DUI, and I'm not excusing a DUI. I'm simply saying that, okay, if DUI is bad, I get it. But it looked like Rashee Rice was going to get off, at least at the beginning of the season, kind of scot-free. At some point, he was going to get hit, but it was like, okay, this seems worse than that. But today, the NFL came down and said 6 games for Rashee Rice. I thought it should have been more, but whatever. It is what it is. At least he got something, because that was kind of a horrendous situation. So Rashee Rice is going to miss the first 6 games for the Chiefs. And then this is a guy that, and I get it that he's going back to the Vikings, and I'm sure a veteran like this, Adam Thielen's 35 years old and had a ton of great years for Minnesota, and they could use a safety blanket kind of a receiver with J.J. McCarthy going into his first year, the second-year player out of Michigan, but remember he had last year had an injury, so he didn't play. So he's essentially a rookie quarterback. You could use a guy that on 3rd and 4 is going to run the right route, catch the rock, and keep the drive going, and that's Adam Thielen. I still think he has it. Now, does he have it like he had 10 years ago with the Vikings? No, but Carolina's not going anywhere. And they get Thielen from Minnesota. And it's one of those situations where he feels like he's going home. I think he's from Eden Prairie, Minnesota, or something like that, but he's from the area, went to college in the area, and he wanted to go home and play for the Vikings. And that's cool. I get it. It's just that of all the receivers that were available, especially on a short-term basis, whether it be Marquez Valdez-Scantling, whether they bring back Kendrick Bourne, whoever and whatever, I just think he would have been the best fit, especially for like a Brock Purdy, because he reminds me of a number, just receivers who are going to be there where they're supposed to be. He's going to block. He's going to play hard. He's going to be where he's supposed to be. He's 35 years old, but he's certainly not done. I'm not saying he's a speed burner, but I'm just thinking of like 3rd and 4 situations where they either move the chains or you don't. And I like Thielen, but he was never going to come to San Francisco. He played for the Vikings, and now he's a member of the Vikings. So Adam Thielen, Rashee Rice, Jeff Wilson Jr., Chaz Surratt, we hardly knew ye. There is some of the NFL Wire today. And I have not been watching the Wire since we started the show now about just over an hour ago. So anything else has we got any news on Kendrick Bourne? Like I said, I'd be really surprised. If Bourne didn't sign with the 49ers, because he asked for and was granted his release by the 49ers. And if he asked for his release, by the Patriots, if he asked for his release, I would think he knew where he was going. So they haven't done anything yet, but I would be surprised if he wasn't a 49er, maybe in the next day or two. Remember, before we get to today's sweet, clean, family-friendly caboose pistol, thank you so much for watching tonight. Talking a lot of Niners, as we always do, 7 p.m. Pacific each weekday. We go through Niners news. We go through the NFL Wire to widen out the lens. And we'll finish the show in a few minutes with today's sweet, clean, family-friendly caboose pistol, which we've been doing for years. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, John Lund Unleashed on YouTube. Also, make sure on the Bay Area Sports Collective, you subscribe there on YouTube. And if you're watching on X tonight, at John Lund Radio, thank you so much. Please make sure you spread the word. Hit the like button so that the algorithm will like us and grow our great community, and make sure those alerts are on, please. And did I already say this? Please make sure that you're subscribed. Much appreciated. Supers, 100% of the time you can get. It works 60% of the time. It happens all the time. Sex Panther. Make sure that if you want to get your questions, comments, or thoughts on the show, that you hit us up with the super, like our good friend Fuji, bottom of the pint. Today's Wednesday. Yeah, I will get with Larry tomorrow, and I'd love to do a bottom of the pint this Friday, Fuji. Our good friend Fuji, bottom of the pint merchandise. Yes, like I said, I know that I've been hitting up our friend Dom, but I've taken control of that whole thing, and I will have them in the shop soon, Fuji. I have already worked on it, and I will let you know. And finally, our good friend Tommy. I love that. I'm a drummer. I wish I would have been a guitarist because they get a lot more attention. Z-Dog is only good at being a roommate. He sucks. Thank you for that, Tommy. And again, thank you to Tommy and Fuji with supers tonight. You can always support the show with a super, and you will get your comments, questions, and thoughts 100% on the show. So thank you to Tommy, and thank you to Fuji tonight for supers. Let's make sure we hit you with a caboose pistol.
John Lund Unleashed presents the caboose pistol.
Wedged in the crack of her buttocks.
Somehow, someway, Lundo thinks this is the best way to leave a final impression on you for the day.
The old caboose pistol, everybody has one.
Did you say caboose pistol?
I know some women who could hide a machine gun in there.
Yeah.
Leave me out
No,
of this,
you
you weirdo. Here's John.
No, you don't. Just kidding. Just getting ready. Just kidding. I'm not going to do that. He didn't get released. All right, so I saw this picture, and I'm so pissed that I missed this. And I would have fanboyed on him. Bill Hader is probably my favorite comedian right now. Great with the voices, but if there's so many shows, and everybody's coming at you with all sorts of different shows, and you should watch this and you should watch that. If you haven't watched Barry on HBO, and I don't think they have a new season out, but I think they've done 3 seasons of Barry on HBO, and Henry Winkler's on it, and it's a great show. It may have finished, but it's got 2 or 3 seasons. I think at least 3, and I don't know if they're going to keep doing it, or I can't remember. And they might have had a new season out. I don't even remember. But Bill Hader's in Barry, in addition to his work on Saturday Night Live, stand-up comedian, movies, all those kind of things. Great show, Barry on HBO. I don't hear it talked about quite enough or quite a lot, but it's a great show. Anyway, Bill Hader's one of my favorites, and right now he might be my favorite comedian. But dude is funny. And there he was at a Giants game last night, and I saw that on TV too, and I was like, "You've got to be kidding me! I'm not at the Giants game tonight, and he's there." And I would have found out. It's one of those rare times where I would have went to his seat and been like, "Dude," and he'd have been like, "Security, get him away from me." And I've told you this story before. Like when it comes to athletes and everything, because I've done this for so long, I don't really ever get intimidated by anybody, and if I do, it might be somebody from classic or something like that, but like movie stars and stuff. I've told you I did the red carpet at the ESPYs before, and I told you my story at the NBA Finals where I've covered lots of things, and I went up to Jack Nicholson and I was shaking his hand, and he's kind of like, "Could you give me my hand back?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, sorry, Mr. Nicholson," and all this stuff. And it's just like, man, I have a lot of respect. No, for athletes, of course I do, but for some of them, it's like, well, you won the genetic lottery. Come on, man. But anyway, I kind of man crush on Bill Hader. I think he's hilarious. But anyway, so I was looking for a clip tonight, and I could have a ton of them. He's got all these different voices and all this different stuff, and I love his Keith Morrison from all these different things that he does. But this is one of my favorites. Oh, that's right. I got to keep. I don't know why I have to keep adding these manually. It's just like I said. It's my my equipment on the road. It's just screwy. But I load them and then they don't load up. So let me do this. I have to load them manually during the show. Here we go.
All right. Hello. My name is John Malkovich.
I don't sound anything like that.
No, you sound exactly like this.
No, I don't.
Yes, you do. Oh, no, yes. Bando, doesn't he sound like this?
Se la cosa to John Malkovich.
John Malkovich. John Malkovich.
Anyway, outstanding. I mean, one of the best impressionists out there. And he's hilarious. And I've heard he's a really nice guy. But anyway, and he just kind of seems down to earth. But yeah, Barry's a great show. He's got a lot of great stuff out there. And anyway, he was at the Giants game, and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. And they showed him out in there, or showed him at the game, and he was being cool, and he was, lots of people were coming up to him and all that kind of stuff. Just a really good dude. But anyway, he is hilarious. But anyway, big fan. And I was pissed I wasn't at the Giants game. So that is today's Sweet Clean Family Friendly Caboose Pistol. So episode 227. If you missed anything at the beginning, we talked about John Lynch. He talked about the JJ trade request, plus a few things on Juwan Jennings. Talked about the receivers as well. Go back for the beginning of the show, and you can hit that up. We talked about Marquez Valdez-Scantling. I'm not overly excited about that. I think Kendrick Bourne is going to be next. I know a lot of people have hit me up, and they're not excited about that. But again, the first few games of the season, I think he could help. He knows the system. He knows what's expected. I showed you the practice squad that the 49ers will be rocking with at the beginning of the season. Not a whole lot of surprises of that group. Apple, Bergen, Bradley King, all those guys were all in camp with the 49ers at some point during camp, other than they picked up a defensive lineman today, a veteran defensive lineman. That's the only player they picked up from the outside. So I told you in the big name on there, Sebastian Valdez, who people were like, how could you cut that guy? I figured he'd be back. A lot of people think that they were going to lose that guy, but they got to put him on the 53. So the practice squad back. This is good news. Stout, especially. I like that James is back, but again, he's not going to get a whole lot of run. But maybe, just maybe, Upton Stout will have enough time to get ready for Seattle in week 1. Could be the starter. NFL Wire, Chaz Surratt, that whole thing about Seahawks, Niners, Marquez Valdez-Scantling goes to the Niners. Surratt goes to the Seahawks right before week 1. They used to do a ton of that. Jeff Wilson Jr. to the Dolphins. I don't think that's any loss at all. Rashee Rice gets 6 games. Thielen back to the Vikings, and Bill Hader at the Giants game last night. That was cool, and I missed it. Let me hit up the comments, question, thoughts one more time, see if anybody has got anything else to say before we get out of here. Do remember, we'll be sending out stuff all through the day, so have those alerts on tomorrow. Also, we'll be back at 7 o'clock for the final road show, and then we'll be back in the regular studio on Friday. I want to make sure that we have anything else. I need more 15-minute segments. You're talking about quick hitters. Yeah, okay, that's fine. I can do that. Let's see here. 80. Yeah, Bill Hader's impressions are just outstanding. I was going to play a walk-in, but everybody's got a walk-in, but his is really, really good. And the one that I was going to play is walk-in was on Saturday Night Live that day. I thought it was great. Let's see, what else do we have? Let me get this. You got to be really precise to move the thing up and down. So if I miss your comment, I apologize. It just gets kind of screwy here. Season 3 is done. Thank you, Salty. Season 3 is done. Oh, the series is done. Okay, yeah. You know what? I might have watched the last one and I just forgot that it was done. Something like that. I'm sure I know how it ended, but I totally forgot. Oh my God. Thank you so much for reminding me of that before I got out of here tonight, Carlos. Carlos Niners. Say hello to Papa. You've talked to him. We miss him this season. Touchdown. Yeah, I talked to Papa at least a few times a week. He's fighting the fight. I feel great about where he is. And, he's just bummed out like he would be. I mean, look, man, he lives for the Niners. He lives for football season. This is his thing, man. He loves it. I mean, he loves his family, all that kind of stuff and his friends and everything else. But, man, this is his thing, man. You know it. If you listen to us at any point during our 15 years together on the radio, whether it be the Niners or the Raiders, this is his time, man. And there's nothing that gets in his way for it. So he's bummed about that. The thing that I find to be a little bit comical in a sad situation for him, fighting this whole thing. I love Guy Haberman. We're good friends, and I think Guy is going to do a tremendous job. Carlos Ramirez is an awesome guy. Who else is on that list? There's a couple of guys on that list. I have not heard their play-by-play. I do know Troy Clarity, by the way. Troy was briefly at 95.7 the game, and I was there. And Troy's a great guy, and I've heard him obviously do Stanford. He's a professional. He's a pro. There's a real young guy there that I think was at SC, right? Just graduated, and I don't know his work. But my point is it's taken like 8 guys to replace Greg Pompa this season. Now, Guy would do it full-time if he could, but Guy's awesome and does college football as well. So Guy can't do all the games. It just won't fit in his schedules. But it's taken like no, not 8, but I think it's 5, right? I think it's 5 different broadcasters that Tim's going to work with this year on the radio to replace Pop. So that's kind of, again, nothing is funny about this situation with Pop's health, and we all have our prayers out there for him. And like I said, he's in good spirits. He's just bummed out that he can't do what he loves, which is this. So it's like, you know, if all of a sudden health took away the thing that you love the most, and again, outside of his family, obviously, but if it took away the thing that you love the most, the thing that you're most passionate about, the thing you've worked your whole life for and with, I mean, and it's not just game day on Sunday. He loves following it. He loves talking to the coaches and the players and maintaining relationships and working with the organization. And he just loves everything about it, everything around it. He, you know, it's just, he's a junkie, man. He loves it. So that's what's that's what bums him out is he, you know, he's sitting there watching the game going, man, I miss this. But I did kind of get a chuckle out of it that it took 5 guys to replace Papa. So that part is kind of like, damn, dude, you know, you're not an easy guy to replace. So yeah, but all of our prayers are with him. And I've told him that many times when people bring him up, and believe me, he feels you. So keep them coming, man. So thank you for reminding me that. I meant to say that. I meant to put that up on the board, and I'm pissed that I didn't. But I really appreciate you reminding me of that. So thank you for doing that for me, man. I really appreciate it. And I'll keep you up to date. Some of the things, obviously, that he lets me in on or says or anything I can't reveal or anything like that. But at some point, he did tell me this, that at some point he'll come on and give you an update on things. And I'm sure that people would love that. But, yeah, he'll give you an update. It's not that he can't. He actually could, but he just wants, you know, he's a private guy. He's always been that way. And as you know, anything you would ever see on social media from him through the years isn't him. He's not on social media, never has been on social media, at least in a public sense. And that's just not him. He doesn't live his life in the public eye, other than obviously, you know, he's a public figure, but he doesn't do social media. He doesn't do any of those kind of things. And so he's not going to be doing the updates and giving updates like that. But when he does, he said that he'll jump on and give everybody an update when the progress is that he wants to give an update. So there you go. And again, want to give thanks to everybody for the supers today. Thanks to Fuji, as always. He's awesome. Thanks to Tommy for supers today as well. And again, you can always hit the show with a super. If you missed some of the show today, just go to the beginning and you can see the chalkboard there and all the stuff we talked about tonight. Also, if you didn't hit up with the comments, questions, thoughts, or I didn't get to something, hit me right underneath here, and I'll get back to you on any questions, comments, or thoughts you have. Also, on X, it's a great place to hit me up as well. I'm always on X, and the very reason that I did Cap Talk tonight, as I put in parentheses there, requested. So somebody did request Cap Talk. We gave you that. The future is bright for the 49ers. Yep, they got the most cap space. They don't have a lot of people that they're going to re-sign or want to re-sign after this season. Yep, Juwan Jennings is on there. The credit card bill is due, and they're paying a lot of that. You should be mad at Deebo Samuel because they're eating $34 million this year, and there's still going to be some left over next year, but the majority of it is going to be on this year, and then they're going to hope to move forward, kind of like the Bills and the Rams did, and stay in contention at the same time, and they get better and better and better. So hopefully we explained that well for you. Practice squad talk, lots of stuff from John Lynch, especially go back to the beginning if you missed it, like the first 3 minutes where we played the John Lynch for you when he talked about Juwan Jennings and also about the other receivers as well. So, and Tim Kamikami asked the question about if he asked for a trade, which I think we already knew anyway, but just to kind of bring that up again as we get down to the 53-man and all that kind of stuff. So if you missed anything, hit me up there. If you have any questions, hit me up under here and or at John Lund Radio on X. Thank you so much for the night tonight. Happy Wednesday. I hope everybody's doing great. We'll do it again tomorrow, 7 p.m. Pacific time on Thursday. We'll have stuff that we'll send out tomorrow as well, so make sure that you have those alerts on. Hit us with the like before you get out of here tonight as well. If you do that, that would be greatly appreciated. And make sure that you are subscribed to John Lund Unleashed on YouTube. Have a great night. No, I said have a great night. Have a great night. Have a great night.